Now I get to say it. Good afternoon, everyone. We just crossed over 12 o'clock. Good afternoon, everyone. Saturday, February 7th, 2026, and an absolutely wonderful show. I'm Peter Boyles, 710 KNUS, and in studio with me, the one, the only, Steve Keeney, and the stories are coming hard. Now, what I'll do this time is we're getting so many messages on the wall. I'll just open up the phone lines, 303-696-1971. I've been hogging the guest, the one, the only, Steve Keeney. The weather's going to be beautiful, 66 and 66 and 65, and all's well in the world. And we were talking right up to the break. We're talking about the Kim Chicken and what happened with you when you were with Carl Scheer and the original Nuggets. And this story's wonderful, and phones are lighting up. Finish the story.
Yeah, well, as I'd mentioned before the break, Carl Scheer just went through all this litany of wonderful things that would involve the Kim Chicken and the Denver Nuggets. I mean, we're sitting there, agape. And so Carl finished by saying, now there's one condition. And I thought, here it comes.
Yeah.
He's going to want $100,000 a year, or God knows what. He said, we share this arena with the Colorado Rockies, the hockey team, for fans and so forth. We would not want you to make the Kim Chicken available to the Colorado Rockies, and they just thrown us out. I swear to you. It was all I could do to start laughing. And I said, you got a deal. We shook hands. There was, no 10-page agreement.
You never inked anything.
And the Kim Chicken until shortly after I left, I guess, for 6-7 years became the de facto the mascot of the Nuggets. And I mean, and Carl lived up to everything he said. In fact, Kim Chicken became such a big deal for our station that he had his own little marketing department. We got him a vehicle.
I was going to say, he had his own car.
Called the Kim Chicken Coupe.
Yeah. And
his son became Kim's Chicken Little, and we introduced him at the Nuggets game and this giant egg that he popped out of him. I mean, it was fun marketing, but Carl Scheer, I don't know if he's still with us or not,
I think he is.
But he was absolutely wonderful to work with. I mean,
he was a great
by the
guy.
way, to be clear, we were not the radio station that broadcast the Nuggets games. It was KOA. So he saw this clearly as an opportunity to tap into a large audience, most of whom did not listen to the flagship station.
No, that's true.
Yeah. So anyway, Kim Chicken, I maintain to this day, I don't know if it's true or not, that the Kim Chicken was the biggest radio personality in the history of Denver radio, and he never uttered a word.
And never threw a mic switch.
That's right.
I'm sure that was true. There was a tragedy in the end, and we, out of respect, went to tell that story.
Well, I guess to give you an idea as to what a huge personality the Kim Chicken was in this town, my wife and I were watching the news on, I think it was Channel 7. Bob Palmer, for those who recall, he was probably the best known anchor now.
Oh, he was great.
They opened with a tease, and the tease was something like this: wife of a major Denver personality is tragically killed in a motorcycle accident. Story to follow. Yeah. It was a Kim Chicken's wife. I didn't even know. Yeah. What had happened was they were motorcyclists, and they were out together on I-25, and her motorcycle went out of control, and she was killed, and he witnessed it. Yeah. But I couldn't believe it. I went running to the radio station, and there he was, not to belabor this tragedy, there he was with our marketing director, obviously in tears, and his wife's funeral service was such a big deal because of him. The press showed up for the funeral service.
We showed up out of respect.
Yeah. But anyway, his name is Jim Fulcher. He is still with us. He called me one day about 4 or 5 years ago. I had not seen him in 15 or 20 years. And he had this funny little voice. He said, "Hey, boss man, I want to treat you to lunch." I thought, well, what's this all about? So we met at the Edgewater Inn, which is perhaps to this day, certainly one among the very best homespun peach joints
Pizza
in
place.
the
We all went there
in the city.
Yeah.
Anyway, he and I met at the Edgewater Inn for lunch, and he looked great. He was very upbeat. Had remarried, and he says, "So I bet you're wondering why I asked you to lunch." And I said, "Well, I am. It's a pleasure to sit down and chat with you." He says, "Well, you remember we had this gigantic banner that had me, the Kim Chicken, on it that we used at all of our remote broadcasts?" And I said, "Yes, I remember that very well." He said, "And do you remember it disappeared?" And I said, "Well, I kind of remember." He said, and he blamed me. And I said, "Well, I apologize for blaming you." He said, "Well, I did steal it." And he said, "And I've got it for you in the car." And we went to his car, opened up the trunk, and I have this in my basement. It's so huge, it would probably fit the entire wall of the studio. But he said, "You accused me of stealing it." And well, I did, So anyway, it was, Jesus, good guy. But the Kim Chicken stories go on and on and on. Steve Kelly.
MC'd.
Yeah, Steve Kelly, the stunts. But let me tell you a story about Steve Kelly. It gives you an idea of what a class young man he was, and certainly still is.
How old was he when you hired him?
19.
I figured. I knew
he was out of work in Tampa, Florida.
Yep.
He had actually been fired. I don't know the circumstances.
It's never happened to me.
And he is originally from Michigan, but someone had recommended him to us. We were looking for someone to do the evening show to draw the teens into the radio station at night. And so we hired him, and the rest is history. He became
I remember he did one of everybody has a tagline about themselves, and Steve Kelly called himself the Ayatollah of rock and roll. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And that was like, and my daughter listened to Steve, and she was a Steve Kelly fan.
Sure.
So I met Steve at the opening of the Marriott, the place at Disco, and he had everybody. Well, I shouldn't say everybody, but he had those autograph cards, with his picture on it, and then he'd autograph. So he autographed a picture to my daughter, and I brought it home, and she was already, the daughter of a bunch of radio clowns, but Steve was the guy, and I said, she didn't listen to me, and she
hurt the old man's feelings.
No, I was kind of glad, And,
I mentioned the term charisma, the old fellow who introduced our staff to his. Steve had that with kids.
Oh,
I mean, he would walk into an event.
Saw it.
And they'd start screaming. It was like Elvis.
Yeah.
But the quick story regarding that I was going to tell you about Steve, that everybody remembers the stunts.
Yeah.
And there's an interesting story about the Mile High Seat Tip. But Steve got a call from a little town in eastern Colorado, like Kit Carson.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure it was Kit Carson, but one of those small towns. They wanted him to MC an event at their community center. I don't recall what the event was, like a dance or something, to raise money. And so he agreed to. And they said they really don't have anything to pay him. So he said, "Look, whatever you take in, maybe we can split it."
Yeah.
Okay, so he did. And I mean, Steve Kelly, people from all around the town, not just the town, he pulled from all around Eastern. They actually had to turn people away. So anyway, he was in a position to walk away with a pretty good chunk of money. Let's say back then, $1,000.
Oh, that's a lot
so
of
the
money.
split was $500. There had been a problem with the piano at this little community center. It was so ramshackle, they had to get rid of it. He gave them $500 to buy a new piano, so he made nothing.
Yeah.
Now, I wouldn't be surprised if it were Kit Carson that there was a little statue for Steve Kelly for what he did then.
No,
and he was generous in that way, in many other ways. But that's the one story I recall.
Do you remember in doing remotes? And remotes were, by the way, if you just came on to this, Steve Keeney's here, and a radio legend. I'm Peter Boyles. I'm the follow-up with with Steve. But I was telling somebody this story. We would do drowned night, all the beer you can drink for $1.
I've never heard that
Remember
term
that
before.
stuff? Yeah, I mean, there's no way you
Not
could
in that
do,
context.
No, not that way you could do that today. But Paul Murray had the beer distributorship. here.
Yes.
And wonderful. I mean, St. Patrick's Day with Paul was an out-of-body experience. And so we would do all you can, and Bob Lee and I were doing mornings on KLAK, first hit show I was ever involved in, and all the stuff you're talking about, I'm watching it happen, and money's coming out of the sky. You don't know where it's coming from, and it's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. But we would do all you can drink for $1, and bars would hire us. I mean, we were a draw like you're talking about, and Bob and I would go. And from 4 until 6, and Paul would give us some cheap beer, a couple kegs of I don't know what it was, and we'd have a band, and it was $1 at the door. And I learned after the third remote, take the door. And,
Smart, savvy.
I'd take the door, and because then now they go to the next guy. I say, this isn't going to cost you anything. We'll just take the door. And
Why not?
It was great. And I can't even imagine allowing anybody to all you can drink for $1. We did it. We did that stuff.
Once upon a time.
Oh, we did great remotes. We did a remote, the first remote I went on. And we had Floyd Little, who was just a wonderful guy. And Bob and I, Floyd Little, what was his name? The clown that had a little kids amusement park that he would put together the rides. Come on, guys, help me on this one. He had the television show Blinky.
Oh yeah, Blinky.
Blinky. We had some adventures with Blinky, and so we're working for Doug Spedding.
Oh yes.
And so we had a van that had a radio station in the van. Everybody had one of those. And so I'm driving because Bob said you drive. And we had everybody with us, and we're coming around that corner into Spedding's, and there's a guy that has a car under a tree with a tent over it. And he has a big sign, Doug Spedding screwed me. And that's my first big remote. And we go pulling in, and I love Spedding. I just love Spedding.
Spedding Chevrolet.
Spedding Chevrolet. That he became Frontier. He changed it around.
Yeah.
And I was a huge fan of Spedding's.
Yeah.
And I came out. I said, I used to call him King. I said, King, look at that. He said, don't worry about it. Remember free balloons for the kids?
You can't keep everybody happy,
We were working for, and you got money for the remotes.
Yeah.
I know you probably booked somebody every weekend.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. We were out there, either remote broadcasts, which were at paid events, customers, or just being in the community at community events.
Absolutely.
I mean, that was tremendously important to us.
Here's one: Prize Patrol. Do you remember Prize Patrol?
Yes.
Kelly Michaels, who was our boss, Kelly did Prize Patrol in Michigan. And gigging in some station in Michigan. We did, Prize Patrol was you would go out in the van and you'd call back to the on-air guy and tell him where you were. And then we had tickets and hats and now
seems silly now, but it was a big deal back
it was a
then. And
huge
fun.
deal.
It was fun.
And people would chase you to find out where you were, and they never. I mean, you remember all that?
Yeah,
I mean, Steve Kelly would. He could pull.
Oh yeah, he pulled everywhere. One of the guys. I mean, I was very proud of so many of the people I worked with. Always tried to hire the best people I could. Even if they were smarter than I am, which was not that
you
difficult.
always wanted that.
Yeah, really.
Sure.
I mean, because you hire the best people, they're going to help you exceed beyond your abilities, perhaps. Probably the most naturally talented of all the radio people I worked with was a guy named Paxton Mills. You know that name?
Really well.
This is kind of a fun little story. And Paxton did mornings on KIMN
Yes, he did.
For us for 5, 6, 7 years, and then kicked around Denver, and unfortunately died of congestive heart failure back in the early 2000s. Ironically, I was his first general manager and last general manager, because at the time I was in the early 2000s, I was managing the CBS stations, including Cool, and he was a morning guy. But anyway, he was a great talent, troubled, but a great natural talent. In fact, I had lunch 2 weeks ago with Doug Erickson, who was our program director.
Knew Doug really well.
Yeah, good, very close to, and Murphy Houston. This was just
There's
2 weeks ago.
a really fine guy.
Yep,
Murphy.
we hired him 40 years ago. Anyway, we're telling stories, and this is one of the stories that came up when we hired Paxton. He had an issue. He had some issues in his past. It was difficult to manage, but he was so talented. We hired him. In fact, when we brought him in to interview, he was so desperate to work at our radio station and do mornings, because he was buried at a radio station in Cleveland, Ohio,
Yes,
I think.
I remember.
So anyway, he's dressed in a three-piece suit. He was like a businessman, and just before he left to go back to Cleveland, he said, "Gentlemen, I have one more thing I'd like to say to you." And then he dropped to his knees and he said, "Please fire me." Well, let me tell you what happened. I said, "Paxton, we have other people we're interested in, but we're absolutely interested in you." And we were committed to hiring at that point in time. But I said, "We'll call you in a week or so." So we did call him, and I don't know what the dollar figure was then, but let's say $40,000 for a morning guy. That was a lot of money back then. But that was a very important position. Mornings on a major radio station.
Set the bar.
Set
the bar.
So I remember Doug, and we were talking about this 2 weeks ago. Doug was in my office. We got on the speakerphone, and I said, "Let's have a little fun with Paxton. Cruel, but fun." So we got him on the speakerphone, and he was there. Yes. And I said, "Paxton, we've got some good news and some bad news." And you hear this groan, and he said, "Well, let's just hear the bad news." And I said, "We cannot afford to pay you $40,000 a year," which is what he said he minimally needed. Yeah. "The best we can do is 60." And there was this long pause. "What did you just say?" And it was 60. And if you're going to hire somebody, you don't want him starving to death, because he couldn't negotiate at all. He said that was what he minimally needed. He was paying child support and God knows what else.
Yes.
But anyway, when you do something like that, you have a level of loyalty from someone like that that never goes away. In fact, when I returned to Denver to take over,
hold the story. We got a pause coming. Yeah. One of the things that we were talking about Jack Merker that Jack said was, be loyal to the call letters. It was one of the.
I like that.
Yeah, Jack. Because I worked for Jack, and Jack was the first guy to give me a gig. And
I like that. I've never heard the term.
Yeah, he said, be loyal to the call letters.
When I returned to Denver,
I got to do this.
Go ahead.
We're going to do this. I apologize, Steve.
No.
All right. The phone lines are open, 303-696-1971. I love shows like this. I hope you do as well. Saturday, February 7, 2026. The one, the only. Steve Keeney in studio. Peter Boyles on the air everywhere. 710 KNUS. Where are you getting these? So, he has that great line, you know. Okay, remember this line. I applied it to myself. Here it comes. Dig this. Dig this. Everybody. True words. 710 KNUS. Great tunes, good selection. Thank you, Adam. It's Saturday with the music master here, Steve Keeney. We haven't even gotten to that yet. And 66 will be the high. And David Ellis, and you've heard me talking about, well, Valentine's Day is right around the corner. Seeing David Ellis Jewelers, to get a fortune in cash for things you want to trade and secure an appraisal from David for all the valuables you have tucked away in your home. It's all still true. I'll share the other reasons to see David just in case you don't have a Rolex watch, rare coins, or a silver tea set. David Ellis for all the most meaningful gift-giving occasions. David Ellis Jewelers, just the right items for just the right price for special people that mean so much to you. An antique watch, an emerald pendant, a gold necklace, a diamond ring. This trusted jeweler's been buying precious metals and antiques here in Colorado, in Denver for decades. Dazzling cases filled with hundreds of new and used pieces your loved ones will treasure. With Valentine's right here, see the man. Visit David Ellis Jewelers. See for yourself. Look for the black awning on the corner of 3rd and Clayton and Cherry Creek. Explore davidellisjewelry.com or call my friend David at 303-322-8779. Again, call David or best to go in. Just see him. The black awning, 3rd and Clayton and Cherry Creek. Park and walk in. David Ellis, 6 days a week. He's there as we speak. 303-322-8779. The one, the only, Steve Keeney, making the radio show terrific this morning. You're talking about when you came back to town, back to Denver, and you'd been, how long had you been gone?
Well, almost 7 years. I had managed a couple of radio stations in Portland, Oregon, one called Kink, K-I-N-K, which was a great radio station.
Love it.
Anyway, that worked out well, and I came back to Denver on my own terms because CBS bought my Portland stations, and they also bought Cool, the Mix, and Jammin' in Denver, and the only general manager that they did not keep among the many radio stations that CBS bought were the Denver stations, and I didn't realize that they had let the manager go until my boss called and said, I'm surprised you didn't apply for the job in Denver. I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, it's open. We decided not to keep the manager, or he resigned. Yeah. And I said, I will be there tomorrow. But to the story, we were talking about Paxton Mills and what a great talent he was, and he really was, and the story of how we paid him more, significantly more than he wanted, he requested. So anyway, so I returned to Denver, and this is 2000, and to manage the CBS recently bought radio stations in Denver, Cool, the Mix, and Jammin'. Paxton was doing the morning show on Cool. I was unaware of that at the time. So anyway, I called a staff meeting to sort of reintroduce myself to Denver and so forth, and Paxton was there, of course. We probably had 50 or 60 people in the room. And Paxton, and I've mentioned that several people I note that we were together in Denver when I was here earlier, and Paxton spoke up and told a story of how I paid him more than he asked for. And I said, Paxton, I want to thank you, because everybody in this room is going to be standing in front of my office wanting a raise. So anyway, but sadly he passed away 2 or 3 years thereafter of congestive heart failure, but probably the best talent, the most natural talent with whom I've ever worked.
I was going to ask you that.
It was just funny. He never prepared for anything. He just winged it.
There were guys, and when Alan Berg did talk, and I say that I was like I was going to grad school. I'm bringing in books and but he wasn't, and that's what made him so brilliant. And I was talking to Ryan Schilling about this, that my best example is, and it was who he was, and I dressed like a bum like I do now, but he dressed impeccably. I mean, he was an attorney, dressed that way, but would do he had a visceral way to do what he did, and he could. And I don't know where it comes from. I think it's a gift, like Paxton's gift. He had it, and one morning I get done with the show, and I did 9 to noon, and then we did a show noon to 1 together. But before that, and he came in. He's impeccably dressed, and he's got a newspaper clip about this big, and he goes. I said, "What are you going to?" And we always talked, and I said, "AB, what are you going to do?" He said, "She's back." And I said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "She's back. Watch this." And I could see him because we had an office down below. He would find things in the National Enquirer and the Globe. And some Bedouins had seen the Virgin Mary in Egypt.
Where are you going with this?
Well, you know where he's going. I'm not going to take it any further. But he did it.
Yeah.
And I was telling stories about those guys when radio was, and he'd blow out trunk lines. I mean, people trying to get at him for doing. And I'd say, where'd you get that? And like Paxton, Uncle Mike McEwen was another one. Mm-hmm. Uncle Mike had it. They just had this gift. Mm-hmm. And Bob Lee had it. He could do voices and come up with ideas and stuff. Where did those guys come from?
Yeah.
I mean, you knew them.
You know, again, most of them started out at small radio stations. Hal Moore did. Yeah. When I was at the University of Illinois, we picked up all of the major radio stations in Chicago because the university was about 80, 90, maybe 100 miles south. So they had all of these 50,000 watt AM stations that just blew into the university. And one of them was the rock station was WLS. But there
Chicago.
was great personalities. But another one was WGN. And WGN was what we call middle of the road. Yep. You know, they played the softer stuff. And their morning guy was a guy named Wally Phillips. Wally Phillips was one of the great natural talents. Wow. He was not funny. He was a wit. And in fact, he had been a Jesuit before he got into radio.
I never knew that.
But anyway, I bring this up because it was shortly after I moved to Denver, and I was listening to KHOW. I wasn't working for KHOW, but I was listening to KHOW because I love the radio station and Hal. And God, I haven't thought about this in years. So Wally Phillips, who I was familiar with from my college days, called on the air KHOW, and they put him on the air. I'm just listening to this as a listener. And Wally was a wit. So this conversation went something like this. He said he got in. He said he was a listener and needed to talk to the gentleman on the air who happened to be Hal Moore. I wonder if Hal even remembers this. And so he finally gets into this. Hal puts him on the air, and I assume it was live. And the conversation goes like this: "Is this the gentleman on the air?" "Yes, this is." "Well, I am an avid listener to your program, and I'm an inventor, and I invented a device that would be very useful in your business." "Oh, yeah? Well, how does it work?" He says, "Well, you attach it to the back of the radio, and every time the disc jockey comes on, the radio goes off." And Hal suddenly realized he was being put on, and he recognized the voice because apparently they had conversed several times in the past. But Wally Phillips was a real wit, and one of the things he did would be which you could get away with back then, would call people and put them on.
So he's broadcasting that.
He's on his radio station in
doing
Chicago.
It live,
But now if you put somebody on the air live and they're not aware of it, you need to tell them in advance.
Oh boy, do you
must
ever
tell them in advance.
You get sued.
In fact, if you're going to record it, you
got to tell them.
So there's not that element of spontaneity that was back then.
Hal Moore is the best disc jockey I ever heard. I grew up and lived with a lot of great jocks, great on-airs. I worked with Bob Lee and Mike McEwen and Lindsay and all of those guys, Paxton and Steve and everybody, giving them all their due. Hal Moore is the single best disc jockey I ever heard.
You know, I'm with you pretty much on that. I've heard, I've been around a lot of great, talented, very talented people. But with Hal was not a comedian.
No.
He was not a wit. He just had an effusive personality, and he loved this city. As you may
Absolutely.
recall,
I love
he
you,
came
Denver.
up with the line, "I love you, Denver,"
I did, and they played it.
and Denver believed it.
Oh, I remember meeting those guys for the first time, being taken and meeting Charlie and meeting Hal and all those guys. I think radio stations ran Denver, and I think Kim ran Denver, and then somehow K-How became, and there were teams, legendary teams, Hal and Charlie, Stephen B. and the Hawk. Floor Wax, those guys. There were teams, and Hal and Charlie at one time were the team, and then along comes Lewis and Floor Wax. But that, I worked with over at the old when Sandusky Broadcasting had this radio station and KBPI, and Tony Brooks was there, and they did the, they had the woman's mouth. And KBPI rocks the Rockies.
That was a great line.
Oh, it was Tony Brooks. I mean, and
If you can, if you're if you're marketing your radio station or any business, and you can include the name of your business in this cell line,
yes,
that's extraordinary. KBPI rocks the Rockies.
rocks the Rockies.
I always thought was,
and it was what's her name's mouth? Come on,
Kelly.
That's right, Kelly.
Here we are, a couple of guys can't remember anything.
Can't remember. Yeah, can't remember a woman's mouth.
She was the daughter of Kelly Harmon.
That's right. That's what I was going to say. That, and she was married to Ricky Nelson, I think, or married.
Yep.
And then Ricky showed up, and Hafner, when he played football at Southern Cal, he lived with Ricky. And they had stories. They were. What was the great line from Burt Reynolds? Guys who pay, give 10 years of their life to have my memories.
Good line.
Oh yeah, well I'm sure that was true. But so, what was the highlight? Given, all this incredible time, and what was the highlight for you?
Boy, there were just a lot of them. I think probably becoming manager of KIMN, and then realizing that I'm being successful.
You were how old?
33. 33 years old. But I think probably after that first difficult year, realizing, hey, I'm making it, because I never aspired. My aspirations were to have a decent job, and take care of my family.
Yeah, what did you want? Yeah,
that's it. Yeah. That's it. I never looked ahead.
Did you ever think? Because I never thought. That's part of being the luckiest guy in the world. And I'm working with these guys that I just.
That you idolized at one time, right?
Yeah, especially when you got into business, and then I was a kid, and I got the midday show on Cat, and I'm working with Gus Merkus,
all these great legends.
Ed Green's working there. And you're kind of in awe of these characters.
When I moved to Denver in 1970, I was fresh out of 4 years in the Air Force as an avionics officer, whatever that is. And I went to graduate school at the University of Denver in communications. I had $1,000 in my pocket, severance from the Air Force, a wife, Sally, and my son Matt, who you met, who was 18 months old, and I needed a job. And so I'd had some experience on the air in radio at that point in time. So
but you'd been an on-air. You'd been...
Yeah, and even when I was in the military as an officer, I moonlit on the side, but under a different name, because the military...
What was your on-air?
I had more.
What name did you use?
Frank Stevens.
Oh.
When I was... now you've got me going backwards. When I was at the University of Illinois and I got a job at the Sizzle radio station in Urbana, don't ask me why I did this. It just popped into my head. I thought it'd be kind of cool for my radio name to be my real name backwards. So Stephen Keeney became Enoch Nevitz. That lasted one day because the owner, who I'd made mention of earlier, called me right after, and he said, "Steve, where did you get that name? And get rid of it. So anyway, so that was my one
Guys
of many
had-
on our names.
Yeah, guys had
But-
radio
yeah.
names. Yeah.
So anyway, to my point, when we moved to Denver, I applied. I came in. I flew up earlier to apply for a job, on-air job. I applied at 6 different radio stations, and I actually had offers of one kind or another at 5 of the 6.
Wow.
The only one I didn't get an offer from was KHOW, and I really wanted to work at KHOW. I mean, they didn't need some some guy recently out of the
Were
military.
you looking to sell time?
No, on the air. Because
Oh, okay.
I needed a steady income because I was going to graduate school. Anyway, so I actually got an offer to do weekends at Kim, but there wasn't enough money, and several other stations, KLZ. But
Break music. I'm going to do
Okay.
this. We'll come back. I'm not watching anything. I'm not following a format. I'm listening to the man. 710 KNUS Denver's talk station Saturday morning. Hey, True, good morning. Thanks, brother. All's well. Stay here.
Your 710 KNUS forecast is Saturday, mostly sunny, really nice out, a little bit breezy with highs near 65. Clear tonight, lows down to 35. Another nice day for Sunday with highs in the mid-60s, lows in the mid-30s. Weather brought to you by L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. For quick, trustworthy, and dependable service, call L&L Heating and Air Conditioning at 720-851-1691. Visit them online at bestdenverhvac.com. That's bestdenverhvac.com. You'll be comfortable with L&L. I'm day weather meteorologist Patrice Sutter in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
710 KNUS. There you go. 1244. These 2 hours flew by, and I'm thinking we ought to get Steve Kelly in here and then bring Keeney back and just keep doing shows like this. Talk about your health for a minute, and I know this great smiles matter, but lots of folks put off the dentist because they're worried about the bill or the drill. Well, it's time to change how you think about a dentist. And for the longest time now, Twin Aspen Dental Center, when they first got underway, and I met Dr. Richter. Dr. Richter, now Dr. Snyder and Dr. Rich, using the latest all the latest technology, making things easy for you and on you. And we're talking about same-day crowns, no temporary crowns that come off on a Friday night, no second appointments. They do it right. So whether you need dentures or implants or you've already ready to straighten things out with Invisalign, the team at Twin Aspen treats you like a neighbor, not a number. These are our guys. They accept most insurance and in-house membership plans. It's a game changer for families looking to save on preventative care. So stop putting it off. Take the first best step, the better smile and better health. They are truly, 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 truly the good guys. Visit them online, twinaspendentalcenter.com, 303-841-7466, 303-841-7466, Twin Aspen Dental Center. Dr. Brian Richter is he's been the most wonderful dentist. Please make the call, make the appointment. Final couple of things with Steve Keeney. We're coming up out of time. As we broke away, you were talking.
Yes,
Please.
your producer was kind enough to jog my waning memory. It was when I returned to Denver. Oh, not returned. When I moved to Denver with my family, I needed work, and so I applied to 5 or 6 radio stations to do on-air work. And long story short, I wound up at KOSI, which was owned by Bill Armstrong
yes.
at the time, and he was managing the radio station. In fact, he and I were the 2 youngest people at the station. But and he was, first of all, he liked the fact that I'd been in the military, yeah. And he was absolutely wonderful to me. In fact, he helped me get some additional work narrating industrial firms.
Well, his family was really entrenched in the business. They had a newspaper, and he was a great guy.
He really was. He was a straight shooter, very honest. Just wonderful, and he was terrific to me. He actually carved out some programs for me. I was a fill-in guy, but he gave me full-time work that was consistent with my schedule at school. So he was wonderful. In fact, of course, later on he became our senior senator, and he always stayed in touch with me. He kind of followed my career, and I really appreciated that. We built when I was at Kim and KYGO, we built new studios on South Monaco Parkway and went from probably the worst facility to the best facility in the country. And he called me one day and said, "I'd like a tour of your radio station," because he loved the technical side of the business.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, he was really terrific to me, and I appreciated that.
When he quit the Senate, and then he took Denver Christian University, and I used to go and write for him. I wrote for his, and we didn't agree about a lot of different things, but I loved him, and I wrote for him, and I would go to his office, "Come on in," and we would sit and talk. I thought he was really a very incredibly good man.
Yep.
He was. As we come out of this thing, what was the low point in this business? Everybody has it's a business of highs and lows.
Low point, sure.
Yeah.
Well, most of them were highs, fortunately, but I think I'm trying to couch this in appropriate terms. I suppose it was when K-How was sold, and it was clear to me that I was going to be out of a job. You and I discussed this earlier, and there was simply not an opportunity for me in Denver because the industry was collapsing. And, instead of a dozen or 2 dozen owners, you had 12 owners.
Phew.
So theoretically, that put half of the managers,
Or maybe 6 owners. by
yeah,
that
out
time.
of a job. So
Yeah.
and Denver was home by this time. We're talking. I moved here in 1970. This is the early 90s. I'd been here over 20 years, and it was really home. So the good news was I had a paid year off
Yeah.
my contract, so I had time to look around. But I was over 50 years old at the time and rather daunted. So that was probably the low point, but it worked out. Again, good luck. I got a job in Portland, Oregon. I'd never been to the Northwest in my life. Portland has a reputation as a city of not catering, of not particularly liking outsiders. It's just a very conservative town. Denver's quite the opposite. You know, it's always been a welcoming city. But anyway, and that's a broad generality. But there was some truth to it. I managed probably the marquee radio station in Portland, KINK FM, classy radio station and so forth. And here this cowboy from Colorado comes, do-si-doing in to manage the radio station. Quite frankly, the guy I replaced should never have been fired, and he had been. Should never have. He was a wonderful manager, but he couldn't get along with the owners. So anyway, but that all worked out, and I really loved the job. But Denver was always home, and I was always looking over my shoulder. But to your point, losing my job at KHOW at the age of 50 or 51 was a low point. But you know what? You suck it in, and you say, what are we going to do now? What are you going to do about it?
That's exactly right. Well, I always said we are head coaches. They hire us because someday they're going to fire us. That was just the truth.
Yeah.
I never saw it.
I haven't heard it put quite that way, but
No,
I think it's true.
It's true. I mean, and you knew it.
Yeah.
And and the old timers would tell you that when I was a kid coming in, and they said, "Look, remember this, because doom, doom, doom." And I got fired on Christmas Eve, and that's probably when.
Boy, how lovely.
Yeah, and that was my first radio job, and I wasn't smart enough to walk away.
Yeah.
I said, "Well, I'll go get another job."
Timing.
Yeah, no, everything is timing, but yeah, we all got zipped on Christmas Eve, and the part of that was.
Jeez.
As I was walking out with, see you later, they said, hey, wait a minute. And I turned around and they said, we need somebody to play the Christmas tapes tomorrow morning on Christmas morning. Would you do it?
And?
I did. I needed the money.
Yeah.
I was broke.
Yeah.
I mean, flat broke.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I had
as they say, you grow out of those kinds of experiences.
But that's the beauty and the people that walked away, but the people that stayed, and you did, and we're coming up on time.
Well, I'm about to lose my voice, so this is good
Thank
timing
you
for me.
You gave me as hoped. I knew you'd do it, and
Thank you.
I told everybody else. Steve Keeney, everyone, and if you want to tell people about this, how can they do it? Adam, just jump in real quick, and how long before it's up and they can see it online or on the site?
Well, it's live on YouTube, so people are watching currently right now. And if you are just tuning in right now, want to watch anything that you've missed, it is up currently. You can watch it right now.
You can see it. There you are. All right, everybody. And by the way, next Saturday, Jonathan and Deborah Flora will be with us. And Deborah, of course, has been involved in radio for a while, but her husband worked for Vince McMahon in the WWE and WWF, and he is a terrific guy. And I've been trying to get the two of them to do the show, and they will do the show next Saturday. We up for time? That's it. Thank you, everybody. Mike Connors, thank you, and Free, thank you, but especially Steve Keeney. Adam, you did a good job. See everybody next Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. Thank you.